Welcome back to High Stakes. Elevate your game by subscribing to our channel so you never miss our daily content. For exclusive access to our premium betting picks, join our Patreon. Find the link in the comments section below. Stay ahead with High Stakes.
Oklahoma State versus Tulsa. Oklahoma State looks like a serious threat to win the Big 12 this year, and while they have a couple of huge contests on the horizon, I think they'll avoid a letdown here and cruise to an easy victory. Mike Gundy's in his 20th season as head coach, and he's typically a guy who demonstrates great attention to detail. While that's a pretty subjective metric, I think it holds weight when handicapping games. Things like winning the turnover battle and avoiding pre-snap penalties could be all of the difference when laying 3 possessions. Mostly, I'm confident in this offense to keep humming along behind reigning Doak Walker Award Best Running Back winner Ollie Gordon II. Gordon II and this Oklahoma State offensive line should shred this lousy Tulsa defense. The Golden Hurricanes are coming off of a season where they conceded 36.3 points per game against FBS opposition, and they're already allowing 28.0 points per contest this season. This is a classic Power 4 versus Group of 5 matchup, and I think the Cowboys put the hammer down on their inferior opponent. The recipe for Oklahoma State has been to get the ball to Gordon II this year. The running back has touched the ball 50 times over the Cowboys' 146 plays this year. Between rushing and getting him the ball out of the backfield, we should see the clock melt under the running back's control. This Oklahoma State offense isn't anything flashy, but they do the fundamentals well. I think that'll result in this game ultimately staying under. Even if Oklahoma State posts a huge win and covers the spread, there's still a good chance the final score comes in under the total. I'm thinking of scores in the range of 42-14 or 42-17, where you're still a few points shy of this total. 62.5 points is pretty lofty, especially with a Tulsa offense that's averaging only 61.0 plays per game in 2024 against FBS schools, 97th. Take under 62.5 points. North Texas versus Texas Tech. Diving into how these teams have been performing on third down is critical for success, and they are showing things on different levels as the Mean Green are 11-4-26, 42.31%, while the Red Raiders are 18-4-34, 52.94% in those situations. Knocking the ball loose is significant, and these teams are on different levels as North Texas has failed to force a fumble while Texas Tech has forced 3 fumbles while recovering one of those. These teams are on 2 different levels as Behren Morton has been the better quarterback, so go with the Texas Tech Red Raiders to win by double digits here. My team pick, Texas Tech Red Raiders minus 9.5 points. These defenses have been struggling in the first couple of games as the Mean Green is allowing 29.0 points per game while the Red Raiders are giving up 44.0 points per game in their first 2 games. Chandler Morris and Behren Morton have turned the ball over too much throughout the season as they have combined for 5 interceptions, which helps the opposing offense get short fields to get points. All in all, go with over 68.5 points in this game as the better option. Memphis versus Florida State. For the second straight season, the Tigers have gotten off on the right foot, this time behind a strong defensive effort. Through 2 games, they had yielded just 8.5 points and 218 total yards per game. Troy was able to rush for 101 yards against them last weekend, but they held them to just 3.3 yards per game. Memphis has allowed just 84 yards per game on the ground. Last weekend, they recorded 8 tackles for loss, with Elijah Herring responsible for 2 of those. The junior linebacker led the team with 8 total tackles and also recorded a sack in the win over Troy. Herring has 2 sacks and 10 tackles this season. Florida State owns a 10-7-1 advantage in the head-to-head against Memphis, though the last meeting came back in 1990. The Noles came into the season a top 10 team with hopes of avenging a CFP snub last season. Those hopes were wiped off the board after their first 2 weeks, but with an extra week to sit on that sting, they should come out in full force here. Based on comments by his head coach, it would seem the leash for Uiagalelei is getting shorter, so should he fail to lead his team downfield, Norvell could turn to the bench. It would be in their best interest to get the passing attack working early to put the Tigers on their heels. The Seminoles have some outstanding receivers, so it's a matter of Uiagalelei getting them the ball. If he can't, the team needs to make a quick move to find someone that will. If not now for Florida State, then when? Take the Seminoles to cover. In their first 2 games this season, both teams saw the under hit against the total. It's hard to be high on the Florida State offense after what we witnessed out of them in their first 2 games. While I would expect them to be able to do more in this matchup, they still have a very long way to go to match the intensity of last year's output. Memphis looked well enough on the offensive end in their first 2 games, but they were facing inferior defenses. This is a true test for them, a real defense where they will need to make adjustments in order to have positive gains. With that likely taking some time for them to figure out, it also may take a little more time for them to score. I do not expect them to put up a ton of points here. That, coupled with their strong defensive play, points to one conclusion. Take the under. Arkansas State versus Michigan. The Arkansas State Red Wolves are traveling to Michigan after their win last week against the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes with a final score of 28-24. This would be their second win of the season as they head to Michigan for their first road game of the season. Arkansas State this season has performed well when throwing the ball, but has allowed points in return, which will be costly in future games. So far this season, the Red Wolves have faced Central Arkansas, who is in a non-major conference, and Tulsa, who is in the American Athletic Conference. Neither of these teams are known for their offense and should not be expected to do well, but seem to find points against the Red Wolves' defense. This season, Arkansas State ranks 102nd in points allowed, allowing an average of 27.5 points per game. This is mostly due to their inability to stop the run, as they rank 115th in rushing yards allowed, allowing an average of 199 yards per game. This struggling defense may be able to catch a break against a Big Ten team, as Michigan has not been performing well on offense this season. The Michigan Wolverines pick up a loss last week against the number 2 Texas Longhorns with a final score of 31-12. The Wolverines now turn to their 3rd home game in a row on a 5-game homestand to start their season. Arkansas State will be the final game of the Wolverines' schedule, where they face a non-conference opponent. Michigan has covered the spread in 4 of its last 5 games as a favorite. Arkansas State, on the other hand, has been unable to cover their spread against ranked teams in 4 of its last 5 outings. Michigan is going to look to make a statement in this game after losing to Texas last week. It is okay for Michigan to have close games or struggle against higher-ranked teams than them, but against non-ranked teams, I expect them to have no issue, especially at home. I am taking the Michigan Wolverines at minus 23.5 points. The Red Wolves have an over-under record of 0-2 to start their season. In their last 6 straight games, the Michigan Wolverines total has not gone over 47.5 points. This seems like a one-sided game in which the Wolverines will be dictating most of the score. While I do expect them to run rampant against Arkansas State, I do not expect them to score a crazy amount of points with their average of only 21.0 so far this season. Expect a one-sided affair with a low total. I am siding with the under at 47.5 points.